Greetings and welcome to another Lessons with Odin. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this adorable HexxenCeed ring made with the lovely 4 seed beads that I had showcased in my Back2Bead Haul. If you haven't seen that haul, it's pretty nifty. I suggest you check it out. I'll leave a link down below. So for this project you will need 6 4 seed beads. These are little cubes, and they're really tiny and cute. Again, you can get those at Back2Bead.com. I'll leave a link down below if you want to check them out. A pinch of 2mm beads. These are 2mm faceted beads. Also, where I got them from is Back2Bead.com. If you don't have these, you can also replace them with Delicas or something a little bit larger. If you have other 2mm beads, feel free to try those as well. A 14mm round cabochon. I'm using a Rivoli in light turquoise. I believe 12mm will work because the fit on this is pretty tight, pretty almost perfect. So 10 4mm beads, or slightly fewer if you plan on using this for something else besides a ring. 8 3mm beads. I'm dividing mine into 6 3mm bicones and 2 3mm pearls. Again, you'll need less if you want to do something else other than a ring. 1 color of Delicas beads, 1 color size 11 beads, 1 color size 15 beads, and of course your needle and thread. So let's get started. Alright, so basically we're going to be starting off using the 4 seed to start a basis of a bezel. We're going to be using one side of the holes, the first side, top and bottom, to be basically creating the bezel. The next side over here is just going to be used for decoration and embellishment. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4. First off, we're going to start with the bottom row. We're going to be putting on an alternating pattern of 2 size 15s, 1 size 11, 2 size 15s, and 1 hole of our 4 seed bead. Okay? We're going to alternate that until we have a complete total of 6 sets. And that is what we are left with. Now what we're going to do is pass our needle back through all these beads once more to form a loop. Like that, and now that my tail and my working thread meet, all I'm going to do is tie a simple overhand knot. Okay, now we're going to reorient the thread in order to form the other half of the bezel. So right now we are on the lower right corner hole to form the bottom of the bezel. So we're just going to move our thread up through the top right hole in order to change orientation. Basically changing direction as well. Now we're basically on top of where we left off. Next up, we are going to thread 1 size 11 bead, 1 3mm bead, 1 size 11 bead. Then we are going to pass through the next 4 seed bead in the same exact hole as the other one so that we keep the shapes the same. So this one right here. Like that. Now that you can see, the 2 rows are on top of each other and we have 2 holes on the outside free to do our decorations. We're going to keep repeating that. 1 size 11 seed bead, 1 3mm bead, and 1 size 11 seed bead. Rotate the next 4 seed bead over here so that it matches the holes, and thread it through. Do that all the way around until you have a total of 6 beads, and you'll end up with something like that. Alright, I also took the liberty of getting rid of my tail as well. End up so that you are coming out of a 3mm bead, then you're going to add on 1 Delica, 1 2mm bead, and 1 Delica. or whatever substitute you are using for the 2mm bead. Then you're going to pass through the next 3mm bead on the round. Like that, so these beads end up in front of the 4 seed. Like that, so that the bead ends up in front of the 4 seed or slightly on top of until we reinforce it. Repeat that, adding 1 Delica, 1 2mm, and 1 Delica, then passing to the next 3mm. Repeat that all the way around until you have 6 sets. Alright, and once more, end up through a 3mm bead because now we're going to start changing direction again. So start off by passing through the next 11 bead over, through the 4 seed, back up and changing direction through the top hole of the 4 seed. So through the 11 and through the 4 seed. Then change direction and go through the top hole of the 4 seed. So we end up there. Now we're going to add on 1 2mm, 1 4mm, and 1 2mm. Then we're going to pass through the same hole of the next seed bead, 4 seed over. And we end up with those beads sitting on top of each other. Repeat that all the way around until you have 6 4mm beads everywhere. Next, what we're going to do is flip our piece over, and since we're currently coming out of a 4 seed bead, we're just going to change direction again and pass through the hole that we haven't used yet on the bottom. Kind of see that orientation there. Like that. Next, what we're going to do is add on 1 2mm bead and pass through the 4mm bead once more. Like that. Add on 1 more 2mm bead and pass back through the unused hole of the 4 seed bead. We're basically reusing our 4mm beads to kind of anchor them in between the 4 seeds. Repeat that all the way around until you have completed all 6 sets. And that is what we end up with. Currently my thread is coming out of this 4 seed bead here. Now we're going to work on finishing the bezels, so what we need to do is move down to the next hole, basically where the 15s are here. So basically all I'm going to do is move through that hole of the 4 seed, and if your needle kind of continues to the 15s, let it, because we're going to head to the size 11 bead here. Okay, so from here I'm going to add on 2 size 15s, 1 Delica and 2 size 15s, and I'm going to pass to the next size 11 seed bead on the round. And we form a little bridge in front of the 4 seed bead. Repeat that all the way around, adding 2 size 15s, 1 Delica, 2 size 15s, and passing to the next size 11 on the round, all the way around until you've made 6 sets. When you get 2 or 3 of these stitches down, you'll want to slide in your cabochon color side down, because this is technically the back, and you're going to want to kind of hold it in constantly because the outside bezel is kind of the perfect size for the shape. So it's going to be a little rough. You're going to end up putting netting all the way over around the thing. But be careful because this tends to want to wriggle everywhere. So if you're finding that you're having too much trouble with it, go ahead and use a size 12 12mm cabochon instead. Alright, so I gave up on the 14mm and snuck a 12mm inside my piece instead. I don't know why it's not repeating very well, but I swear to you, this one is a 14mm. If you're having troubles, go ahead and switch to a 12. If you're even having more troubles after that, add either one more section in the very beginning when you add the 4 seeds. Just add one more or even 2 more if you want. But anyway, after you get that last round of seed beads done, you want to be sure to reinforce it so that the stone stays in place. And then we're going to work on the band, so we need to sneak over to a 4 seed. Right now I have just finished passing through a row of the last section here, so I want to actually snake up the size 11 and the size 15s that are above these 3 beads here, this 11 and these 2 size 15s, moving on through to the 4 seed hole here. And it has a tendency to move to the 4mm here, just let it and then just pass back through again if you're having difficulties getting just the beads you want. So I am passing back through this 4mm bead because I don't want it in there. So from here you should be coming out of this hole of the 4 seed right here. You need to just move up to the top hole above it. Alright, so from the 4 seed we're actually going to continue on to the 2mm bead right next over, because we're going to use these 2mm beads to anchor half of the band. Make sure you are also on the back side of the pendant as well, instead of the front side, which would be these beads. You want to be on these beads over here. Next up, we're going to add 1 size 11 bead, 1 2mm, and 1 size 11 bead, in addition to 1 4 seed bead. Then, after that, we're going to pass through the next hole over. This is the one that is parallel to it. Hold that down so that it jets across from the 4 seed. Gonna add 1 more size 11, 2mm, and size 11. Then we are going to pass through the 2mm bead to anchor this piece together. And also continue on through the 4 seed as well, that is on your bezel. From here I went a little too far, so I'm going to pass back through the 2mm bead so that I am right at the 4 seed that I want to be. So here I am at this hole of the 4 seed here. In order to add the second layer on the bezel here, I need to move up to this hole here. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna actually pass my needle through this so that I'm in the right orientation. So now you can definitely see where I am at. I am at that hole. All I need to do is pass through. There we are. And again, that 2mm also tends to jump through. You can just pass backwards through it so that you are in the right area. Alright, so from here I'm going to thread on 1 Delica, 1 4mm bead, 1 Delica. Then I'm going to pass through the top 4 seed hole that is directly across from where I'm at. So that I kind of anchor it like that. Then we're going to pass through the last unused hole of the 4 seed. Now, like we did for the bezel, what we're going to do is add on 1 Delica bead, pass back through the 4mm bead, then add 1 more Delica bead and pass through the bezel 4 seed. So that we anchor the piece in place. And once again, don't worry if you're at the 2mm bead, it'll just do its thing. There we are, we end up with a 4mm bead on top of a smaller band. I'm going to pass back through the 2mm bead that I'm not supposed to be in so that I am in the right place. To do the next section, what I gotta do is pass up through one Delica bead, the 4mm, another Delica bead, and through a hole, top hole on the 4 seed. Like that, so that I end up here. Okay, so from here I'm going to do something kind of similar. I've got strung one Delica, one 3mm, one Delica, one 4mm, and 2 Delicas. From here I'm just going to pass back through the 4mm bead so that the 2 Delicas are right on top. Just like that. From here I'm going to add one Delica bead and pass back through the 3mm bead, creating that same thing we just did with a 4mm bead right above. From here, that is what we end up with. From here I've got one Delica added, and I'm just going to pass through the 4 seed. And that is it. Then I'm going back through the top hole, so I need to pass down to the bottom hole here to add the next section. So from here, all I'm going to do is just pass through that hole there. From here, I'm going to add on 2 15s, one size 11, 2 15s, and pass up through the 4mm all the way up at the top. Okay. Then to go back down, I'm just going to pass through one of the Delica beads here, down the opposite one, and back down through the 4mm bead. So down the opposite Delica, down the 4mm bead. From here, I'm going to add another 2 15s, 1 11, 2 15s, and pass through the next hole of the 4 seed bead. That is opposite the previous set that we just made. Like that, we end up with 2 little bands underneath the 3mm pearl. Now to get back up, all I'm going to do is pass through the next hole of the 4 seed. I'm coming out of the right one here, so I'm just going to go up the left one, up through the channel of size 15 beads, up through the 4mm bead, and through one of the Delicas. That is what we end up with. Now, to make this into a ring band, I would recommend attaching another tail and doing these same steps on the opposite 4 seed here, so that then you can join the 2 sides with herringbone stitch. And I'm not going to show you how to do that now because I have quite a few tutorials that show you how to do that. The most recent would be my Polaris ring that shows you how to basically do a single row, single column of herringbone stitch and join 2 ends together, so that you end up with something like that on the ring. You can also expand it and turn it into a bracelet, like that. But I think I'm going to turn this one into a pendant, so what I'm going to do is add a little bit of herringbone, then curl it over. So I will see you guys when I've finished that part. Alright, so I've got my herringbone the length that I want for a bail, and I think I'm going to attach it to these 2 size 11 beads in the back. So I'm coming from the left bead right now, so I'm just going to thread through the left bead, size 11 here, so that it's like that. You can also move it even lower if you want a bigger bail. To use these 2 beads back here somewhere, or even all the way down to the back of the bail. But moving on, I'm going to move up through the right size 11 bead, like that, and then back up through the free hanging right side Delicas bead to join the two together. Like that. Then all I have to do to kind of secure it in place is basically pass back through those 4 beads again that I just used, and then end my thread, and then I have a good old-fashioned pendant. And that is my finished piece here. Free dangling, really good to put on cords or fancy ribbons. I enjoyed this tutorial, despite all the difficulties that I've had with the sizing. But anyway, let me know if you guys decide to make this piece, and any suggestions you have onto making it easier. And also share me some pictures, because I love seeing pictures of what you guys make and your color choices. And once again, you can buy the 4 seeds in the 2mm from Back2Bead.com. I'll leave a link down in the description below, and of course, if there's anything that I need to be trying out right now, feel free to leave me a comment down below, and I will see you next time.